Alright guys, hope you're doing well. So I'm redoing this video. You might have seen the video I did yesterday about EMFs and EMF sensitivity on a hair analysis test. It turns out that the audio was glitching out, so fingers crossed we've fixed that issue now. We're going to talk about the video. We're going to talk about EMFs on a hair analysis again. So we're going to get straight into it. So basically on our hair analysis.report application, there is actually an option, if you click on view additional reports when you're going through, to generate an EMF sensitivity report. So this is going to look at EMF sensitive HTMA markers and see whether you've got them on a hair analysis test. So I personally suffered from EMF sensitivity massively. If anyone's wondering what that is, it's electromagnetic frequencies, things like 4G, Wi-Fi, telecommunications, radio frequencies, and the whole gamut of the new era of electromagnetic radiation. The electromagnetic radiation in the environment has gone up by quadrillions. It's absolutely huge. And it turns out you can actually see EMF sensitivity markers on a hair mineral analysis. Now, I should stress that these markers don't mean 100% you've got EMF sensitivity. What it means is that if someone's suffering from EMF sensitivity, then usually these markers will present themselves on a hair mineral analysis test. And when a person fixes these markers, their EMF sensitivity will generally, dissipate and hopefully disappear permanently, like mine did. The process is quite challenging, mainly challenging because dealing with and healing EMF sensitivity is very, very specific. So, a lot of people will do the wrong things, even though they might appear pretty good, and will not move forwards. A prime example is most people, in fact, every single person that I've dealt with who's had EMF sensitivity also have what we call toxic copper or biounavailable copper, and basically it's quite difficult to get that copper out of the system without doing something like a mineral balancing program, because balancing that copper is extremely specific. If someone, for example, is eating too much fruit or eating too much carbohydrates or doing too much exercise, they will basically find it almost impossible, from my personal experience, to balance out copper in any meaningful and reasonable way. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this hair analysis test and look at some of the EMF markers present. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this EMF sensitivity report that was generated on hairanalysis.report. If you are a practitioner watching this, then I highly recommend you check it out. It might be really helpful for you to generate detailed hair analysis reports. So yeah, this is the hair analysis that we've got, and this is the report that's been generated. So one of the most common things, probably the most common thing when it comes to EMF sensitivity and dealing with EMF sensitive issues, is the level of toxic metals that an individual has got inside of the body. So any metal that's basically highly conductive is generally going to cause issues for people if it's accumulated quite a lot in the body. Copper is obviously one of them, but we've got things like aluminum. So on this report, we've got a elevated aluminum level, mercury, nickel. Copper is technically not a heavy metal, but it is a metal, and people do get quite copper toxic, and we'll talk about that in this video. And obviously copper is a highly conductive metal, as is aluminum. So, like I said, every single person that I've worked with EMF sensitivity has some form of copper toxicity, and they've usually always got aluminum toxicity. And if you've got copper toxicity, you've always got some level of mercury toxicity, and most people have got some nickel toxicity as well. So those are all indicators on a hair analysis test. Some other indicators are what we call pore eliminators. So in this report, all of the pore eliminators are down at the bottom of the report. Pore eliminators basically means if you've got an extremely low level of toxic metals and the hair analysis test is showing signs of acute stress, then there's a high likelihood that you are actually toxic in them metals, but the body is struggling to eliminate them because of poor detox pathways due to other ill health that's going off inside of the body. So if a person's got a lot of what we call pore eliminators, in this particular case there's 6, then it's a high indication that the individual is suffering from a toxicity of that metal, and that will actually show up on subsequent retests if a person's following a mineral balancing program. It's quite shocking for some people because, you know, they'll look at their copper level. So the copper level here is extremely low at 0.6, and they'll think, oh, I've not got copper toxicity, it's showing really low on my hair test. But they're showing copper as a pore eliminator, and then, you know, 6 months, a year, you know, sometimes 2 years down the line, the copper level will just shoot up on the hair test. And, you know, that's a person dumping copper. So while we're talking about copper, we'll just go on to hidden copper toxicity indicators. So I've actually talked about hidden copper toxicity indicators on a previous video a few days back, so you want to watch that video for a much more deeper understanding of what hidden copper toxicity indicators are. But basically, hair analysis has been going on for, you know, 40 plus years, and basically the pioneers in hair analysis, people like Dr. Paulek, Dr. Lawrence Wilson, they actually found that when a person follows a mineral balancing program, often a lot of the time, especially slow oxidizers, they will actually dump copper. So this was an indicator to them that people seem to be accumulating copper inside of the body, and they actually found that they can see various markers on a hair analysis test that are signs that an individual is probably suffering from copper toxicity, and then obviously in the future hair test they would show a big increase in copper. So there's quite a lot of copper toxicity indicators. They're all on this report. So this particular test, this is an extreme test, by the way. There are actually 14 indicators. So these are all the indicators that are showing up here. When I had EMF sensitivity, I was extremely copper toxic. I had a lot of copper toxicity indicators now, and a lot of adrenal burnout indicators as well. Now I don't have any copper toxicity indicators or adrenal indicators. So it just goes to show that the hair analysis is accurate and the mineral balancing program works, because I'm a testament to someone who suffered from extreme EMF sensitivity to a degree where I had to sleep in a Faraday cage, and you know, now I live completely EMF free, which I'm extremely grateful for, because EMF sensitivity is a 24/7 hell, and I do feel extremely sorry for people who are suffering from it. So other markers that we can see on a hair analysis is weak adrenals and thyroid gland. One of the key things to look for on a hair analysis when it comes to adrenal gland health is the sodium level. So if the lower the sodium level, generally the more burnt out the adrenal glands tend to be. Like I say, this is an extreme test, so the sodium level is very low because I'm just trying to talk about the markers. But yeah, a low sodium level is a sign that the adrenal glands are not functioning properly. The adrenal glands are amazing glands. They help regulate copper. It's to do with things like ceruloplasmin and sending signals to the liver to create copper binding proteins. When the adrenal glands are weak and they're not functioning correctly, it doesn't do that very well, so you do get an accumulation of copper. The adrenal glands help a lot with energy levels. If the body's got low energy, the detox pathways are sluggish, the liver's sluggish, etc., etc. So anyone that's suffering from sort of EMF sensitivity will always have some degree of adrenal issues, and the adrenals and the thyroid kind of work together. They're like a team. So whenever you've got exhausted adrenals, you've usually got an exhausted thyroid gland. Luckily, on a hair analysis, we can also see adrenal indicators. So on this report, this particular test is showing 7 adrenal burnout indicators. So extremely burnt out, severe burnout pattern, and obviously that would be something to address with the individual to deal with their EMF sensitivity issues. Another vital thing to look at is liver function. So we can actually see liver stress markers, or poor liver function markers on a hair analysis test. If your liver's functioning at a poor level, that basically means that your body is not able to detoxify toxins properly. The liver also does a lot of other different things. It helps to regulate hormones as well, and it creates a lot of proteins that are super important for the body. So whenever the liver's sluggish, it's not just toxins that it's struggling to deal with. It deals with a myriad of different things. And we've actually found on the program that fixing things like the liver will often fix other things in the body. So, for example, if you're suffering from floaters or visual snow, it definitely helps with that as well. And I'm sure I can talk about that in another video. But for this particular hair analysis test, it's showing all of the liver markers have got a tick next to them. So a low NAK level, a low zinc level, a sympathetic dominance pattern, slow oxidation, and copper toxicity. Another thing to look out for is the body's electrical minerals. So the body's electrical minerals are basically the sodium and potassium ratio. You'll find people that are suffering from EMF sensitivity usually have a low sodium potassium ratio. Like I say, the sodium potassium are basically the electrical minerals in the body. They're sort of fundamental for the function of sort of nerve signal transmission, muscle contraction, etc., etc. And you know, the body is an electrical system. If the electrical minerals are not in balance, and you're experiencing, you know, an influx of elevated EMFs or electromagnetic frequencies, then the body is going to be out of balance and it's going to struggle to deal with that influx of EMF frequencies. So another thing that's quite important, and in fact there are EMF studies that show that people who are sensitive to EMFs often have calcium regulation issues. So the amazing thing on hair analysis is we can actually see that. So if you see the calcium level here, it's super high. This is an indicator that the body's basically calcified itself, a little bit like an eggshell. And what happens when the calcium is extremely high is the cells tend to harden, they tend to calcify. And what we've found is that when the EMF frequencies are traveling through the body, because the cells are hardened, that obviously stresses out the body, makes the cells less permeable, and it presents EMF symptoms to the individual, or heightened symptoms to the individual. So the calcium level is not always high. We can see other things like a 4-low or a 3-low pattern. So a 4-low or a 3-low pattern is basically when all 4 or 3 of the first 4 minerals are below the ideal levels. This is basically a complete burnout indicator. The body is really sort of malnourished in minerals. The body will go into what we call a 4-low pattern when it's kind of burnt out, and you know, it's usually tried other routes. So for example, it'll go into fast oxidation, it might go into a 4 highs pattern, but after a while the body cannot keep up with sort of secondary alarm response stress patterns, and it sort of collapses. In a way, it kind of gives up and it goes into this 4-low pattern. And you know, when the body's in this particular state, it's extremely depleted, and you know, EMF sensitivity will generally be quite high in these individuals. Alright, so we've talked about copper toxicity. We'll go on to low iodine levels. So iodine is so important for people that are struggling with EMF sensitivity. Interestingly enough, when I suffered from EMF sensitivity, it got to a point where I could actually turn on and off my EMF symptoms by taking kelp. Obviously, kelp is super high in iodine, and we can see low iodine level markers on a hair mineral analysis test here. So there's a few on this test. So whenever you're suffering from EMF sensitivity, we're always going to try and get a lot of iodine in the body. The main way we do that is through kelp capsules. Interestingly enough, if people are super sensitive, super ill, they might actually find themselves to be overstimulated by kelp initially. I was personally overstimulated. I couldn't sleep for a while when I first ever began, and realised it was kelp, so I personally had to stop taking kelp for a while. And then once my body had healed somewhat by doing other parts of the program, I could tolerate kelp again. And yeah, like I say, it got to a point after a while where I could turn on and off my EMF symptoms by taking kelp. So that just goes to show how important and crucial iodine levels are in the body when it comes to dealing with EMF sensitivity. So we'll look at a few other things: the amigos, iron, manganese, and aluminum. These cause a myriad of symptoms in people, things like anger, forgetfulness, malaise, detachment, and others. They're quite irritable to the body and cause a lot of inflammation. So in turn, it can result in hundreds of symptoms of diseases. We've personally find that people with EMF sensitivity usually show the high amigos, and it's important that these minerals are conductive as well. So it's no surprise there. The phosphorus level is the vitality indicator, so we usually find that the phosphorus is low on a hair analysis test. This is an indicator to us that the vitality of the individual is running low. Obviously, if the body is low on vitality, then it's going to struggle with various bodily processes, including the ability to deal with an influx of EMF frequencies. So that's basically everything. This is a video specifically talking about EMF markers on hair analysis. Dealing with EMF sensitivity is a whole different situation. We use the mineral balancing program. It's very important to work with a client to get the supplementation correct, especially with things like kelp, etc. And it's super important to work with the individual to make sure they've got an EMF safe space. I've got other videos on the channel talking about working with projectors, creating Faraday cages, and creating a safe space for the body to safely detox. So if you think you're suffering from EMF sensitivity, then you can sign up for the program at htmapro.com/Lewis Moon, link in the description. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully speak to you soon, and please subscribe, like, and comment if you have any questions. Catch